Thank you for coming today. What I'm going to do this morning is go through some of the issues that we've encountered rolling out this project, and it'll give some context to some of the discussions we will probably have later today. For people who may not be aware, the Energy Oz pilot program was funded by the Commonwealth and under three funding initiatives. And the project's been running now for over 2 years. So if you go back to when we first started the project, we signed a contract and then we had to start to make it happen. And there's been a lot of work over the last 2 years, and probably over the last 4 or 5 months we've really started to make inroads within the project. So a number of key aspects of the project was we're looking at completion rates of apprenticeships, and I noticed I think it was discussed yesterday with the Minister, the ongoing issue of poor completion rates. In our industry, it's not as bad as some others, but it's definitely been an issue in the long term. So what we did, we looked at it from a couple of areas. We developed a thing called a readiness assessment, which we wanted all candidates coming into our project would have to pass the readiness assessment, which was a numeracy and literacy test. And it was interesting when we first started to run the readiness assessment within our participating RTOs, there was a lot of people saying it was too hard, people couldn't pass it, and after quite a bit of work with our people our mentors in the field and with the EOS staff, we've seen a major improvement in the pass rate. And it was what we were trying to do is to give apprentices an opportunity to identify their numeracy and literacy, and then if they needed assistance before they went on with their apprenticeship, they could do that through their RTOs. During the last 2 years, we've had over 7,300 candidates undertake the readiness assessment, and that's across all states and territories. And it's probably the first time ever that we've had a readiness assessment type test across the whole country, and we've got a lot of invaluable data when you break the data up to show where people's strengths and weaknesses are. And it's no surprise a lot of the candidates have struggled in the mathematics, especially in the harder trigonometry and things like that. So we've found that's been a very interesting exercise, and over the last sort of 6 months, the RTOs that are participating in the project are really supporting the whole concept, and I think it's due to a lot of hard work by a lot of people within the project, and I think it's been a very positive thing. The other thing with the project we had to start building was an IT platform, IT infrastructure. We were going to develop blended learning resources and assessment tools, and we had to set up a very detailed integrated IT platform. Some of the things we have loaded up into the platform are the unit resources and assessments, and we've also developed an iAuditor application for our mentors in the field that they can go around and fill in their visits, and then it gets downloaded into the IT platform, which is a really a very positive thing. And I used to run a group training company, and it was always the bane of the management team trying to track what our field staff were doing. So this automation through an iAuditor system, which is an iPad application, has been a very, very successful thing. During the last 2 years, we've been developing, we've developed Phase 1 and Phase 2 unit resources and assessments. So as it's a competency-based apprenticeship, we're not allowed to call it years, so we've changed the years to phases, and we have Phase 1, 2, 3, and 4. So that's been an interesting exercise, starting from scratch, and there's been a lot of work and rework in the context of that area. We've also we've developed Phase 3 and 4 unit resources, and we are currently working on the unit assessments. By the time the project finishes, which is June next year, we will have the full 4-year phases developed. And the other thing we are looking at doing is developing more interactivity within the units themselves as well. We're also developing around 25, I think, John, 25 electives in our project as well, and that will give industry a lot more variation and variety of elective units going forward. In the past, it's been in our trade mainly a telecommunications area that has been used as a elective unit. So we find that's been very well received as well within the industry and within the RTOs. The other thing we've been looking at within the project is, at the end of each phase, implementing a thing called an industry progression benchmark. And we have an industry committee, which the electrical regulator sits on, and we've been working through that over the last 2 years. We've had around 11 meetings up to this point in time, and I know the regulator will talk probably a little bit about that in his presentation as well. So far, we have signed up 27 RTOs across all states and territories. And that's a combination of TAFE colleges, and we have some large electrical private RTOs. So the private RTOs we've got are in basically in Queensland, Victoria, South Australia, and WA. And the state with the most RTOs is Victoria in the program, because they've got a lot smaller and a lot more multiple RTOs within their jurisdiction. And also, probably over the last, I would say, 12 months, there's been really strong engagement between the RTO staff and our mentor advisors and our management staff on the job as well. We've had to work very, very hard to really engage and get people on site, and it's been a long journey. It's very difficult to start these projects. They just don't happen straight away. So I think it's been very good exercise over the last 12 months. So far, we've got 1,583 electrical apprentices in the program across all the states and territories, and which we're happy with that. We think that's a reasonably good sample, and to trial all the various parts of the project. Part of the project also, as I said earlier, we've employed mentor advisors who work in the field, and they work closely with the RTOs, also with the apprentices and the employers. We find that that's been invaluable part of the project. And in fact, if we didn't have those people on the ground, we probably couldn't have got as far as we've got today. And the other thing we're working on currently is a sustainability strategy post the project of next year. We don't want this project to stop in June next year and then it just is put up on the shelf. We want this to continue, and we think we will have learned a lot of good lessons over the last 3 years when it completes, and we want the project concept to continue into the future. There are a number of things that have raised their head over the last 2 years, and I'm happy to go through those with you. And I think some of these items will be discussed today. We have ongoing government changes to vet policy. I think Bernard just mentioned the Commonwealth before. We've also got state and territories continually changing policy as well. You get a new government gets elected, they tend to go off in a different direction. And that's made, it has continued to, in my view, destabilise some RTOs within the vet sector. People like surety, like to know where they're going in the long term. Also, in some states, RTO funding has been reduced, and we have seen some instances where some RTOs are looking at reducing the face-to-face delivery, which is a real concern. And, I think that's something that we really have to look at, because we don't want to end up like some traineeships where, you've got tick and flick exercises. So it's really important that we have quality training, and I've just got a real concern about major reduction in the face-to-face delivery. We find that RTOs across the country are really struggling to develop unit resources and assessment tools, and that's due to, again, lack of funding in many respects, and also technical writers. There's a real shortage of technical writers across the country for our industry, and so a lot of colleges in Victoria, for instance, they're really looking at this project, and they really keen for us to develop all these units and all these assessments, because they're all struggling internally within their own colleges. And we've had some teacher opposition moving away from lockstep training, from the old traditional lockstep delivery, moving towards a competency-based progression delivery, and that's been a major challenge for the teachers, and there's many, many reasons why. Some teachers struggle with change management issues with competency-based training. And, you just can't say to a teacher, as from next Monday, CBT's in. You've got to do a lot of work with people, and if you want people to embrace major change. One of the other issues we've discovered is some TAFEs struggle with quality IT infrastructure, and sometimes it is a demarcation between other departments. They control the IT labs and the electrical don't, and some areas their wireless is not really that great. And I'm not saying every college, but some colleges it's been an issue for us. And another area is if you want to have true competency training, you need to have integrated theory and practical workshops. And again, that's very light on the grind, and we believe that where it's successful, you do need to have that integration to make it happen. And there's also been concern about moving towards national, consistent national assessment. That causes concern. You know, people get benchmarked at the college level, they also at the teacher level. So there's been some concern about the rollout of that. And also the industry benchmarks, which we will talk about later on. There's some people are concerned about how that's going to work and how you're going to fund it within the training model. The other thing, clearly, again, if you're going to run competency-based training in the training system, you do have to have a lot of professional development work. We have spent a considerable amount of money in this project and a lot of effort with PD going around the country and training teachers and working with teachers. And I think that's been a very positive thing, but it's a thing we will have to continue right through the end of this project. It's absolutely critical. But outside this project, you really do need to have a look at professional development for teachers. It's an absolutely critical issue. And the other thing is there has been RTO mergers in some states, and that has a flow-on effect of how we deal with those colleges. And also some areas there has been cut back in teaching staff. So these are sort of the highlights of some of the areas. I don't want to sound negative, but there are issues that have come up along the way. We're, as a project, working very closely with the colleges and trying to help them as best we can. And I think some of those issues I've raised today, I think it would be good if we have some discussion throughout the rest of today's presentation. Thank you very much.